I'd like to call to order the October 19th, 2021 meeting of the Architectural Review Board. Ms. McDonald, will you please call the roll?
Jennifer Oberlin. Brittany Sands.
Here.
Nicole Conkle.
Here.
Irma Johnson.
Here.
Tom Midcalf.
Here.
Patty Cross.
Here.
Kevin Breek.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Board members, have you had an opportunity to look over the minutes from the last meeting? And does anybody have questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One of our applicants this evening, Mr. Snyder, requested their application be moved to the front of the design review portion of our agenda. So if there are no objections, we'll do that. But before beginning design review, I will share a very brief chair's report. For this past month, we participated in the first of ongoing monthly Heritage Tourism Working Group lunch meetings. And we received a general letter of comment with photographs from Michael Fitzpatrick regarding his recommendation of adding restrictions to the use of vinyl sidings on historic buildings in South Frankfort. We also received an email inquiry from a potential future resident that had some questions that were forwarded to city staff. Ms. Berenberg, would you like to read the administrative approvals?
Vicki Berenberg, Historic Preservation Officer. For the period covering from September 15th to October 18th, we had 8 administrative approvals. One in the Central Business District at 100 East Broadway for an interior fit-up. Let's see, 6 in the Special Capital District. 507 Marshall Court, fit up in the attic into living space, replace 3 existing vinyl windows in kind. 109 Arnett Avenue, repave the existing driveway and a 24-inch retaining wall. 229 West 3rd Street, reside the vinyl siding in kind on the front and left side of the home. 422 West 4th Street, repair siding as soffits in kind. 313 Conway Street, install K-style gutters, which already exist on the front porch. And 505 Weber Court, replace the asphalt roof in kind. And we had one in the Special Historic District at 300 Washington Street to replace the rubber membrane on the rear roof with TPO, which is already on the front of the building, and rebuild 2 historic chimneys concurrent with the roof repair in kind.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald, would you please read the first design review item for 515 Logan Street.
In accordance with Articles 4 and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, John and Martha Snyder are requesting a certificate of appropriateness to replace the existing 4.5-inch vinyl siding with new 7-inch vinyl siding at the property located at 515 Logan Street. The property is more particularly identified as PBA map number 062-32-05-011-00.
What was the trick, Jordan? Walk
Move your mouse
backwards?
and click it again. Oh, did it stop? Click on another spot.
What do I need to hit it to?
Yeah,
there we
and
go.
your wheel shifted it. Cool.
Thank you. Okay, this is a property that you saw last month, if you remember, at 515 Logan Street. The applicants are working with local contractor Matt Marshall to complete upgrades to the exterior of the property. And at the last meeting, they did receive a certificate of appropriateness to replace 3 doors and some windows on the rear. And I mentioned at that time that they had also received administrative approval to replace the vinyl siding in kind. A couple days before the meeting last month, they were beginning to work on that project. The vinyl siding was delivered to their house, and it was not the vinyl siding they ordered. Instead of being 4.5-inch vinyl siding, it's a bit wider. However, it is their preferred manufacturer of vinyl siding, and it is in the color that they wish to use. And their supplier is telling them that because of the pandemic and the material shortage, that they are unable to get this color of vinyl siding in the 4.5-inch size. So they are requesting approval for the wider siding, which is 7-inch. This house is, as we talked about before, a craftsman-style bungalow. It was built in the 1920s. It is contributing to the South Frankfort Neighborhood National Register District. And we do find the proposal to be partially compatible with the design guidelines. I'll get to that in 1 minute. Here is a PVA map showing where the parcel is located. And here is that 1925 Sanborn map that shows the property right here. This is prior to the additions that happened on the back, where this porch was enclosed, which happened in the 1960s, and then that second story area was added on. Picture on the left, I took as part of last month's report. Picture on the right is where they are right now, having started to remove it and then received the wrong siding. Here's a picture of the rear of the property again. This part is an addition where that porch was enclosed, and this part is an addition. And that's the current status. Interestingly, when they took off the vinyl siding, they discovered that part of the house does have wider siding already applied to it. That rear porch addition in the 1960s received wider siding at that time. And I think I mentioned last month, the permit for that job from 1967 also indicates the house was covered already with artificial siding at that point. It had aluminum siding at that time. These 2 photos are the 2 craftsman bungalows that are directly adjacent to the south of this house at 515 Logan. They are both covered with artificial siding, and in both cases, it is a wider variety of siding. Here's another view. Across the street at 518 Logan, this house has 2 types of siding. There's the more narrow siding on the bottom, but the wide siding in the top gable. And these two houses, this one's 522 Logan. This is actually on the corner, so it has a Todd Street address. We have the narrower siding on this one, but the wider siding on this one. And here's another view looking to the northeast on the other side of 515. So, again, staff finds that the request is partially compatible. There is language in the design guidelines that, generally speaking, the siding should be 4 to 6 inches. This is just slightly wider than that at 7 inches. And we have put together this list of suggested facts for your consideration. Number one, the house is currently covered with vinyl, and it has had artificial siding on it for over 50 years, so we're not talking about the original siding. The rear of the structure was remodeled and expanded in 1967, and the new work was covered with wider siding, which was exposed when the current blue vinyl was removed. Number three, there is a variety of siding materials and styles on the block, including 2 other craftsman bungalows similar and adjacent to 515 that have wider siding. If the board elects to issue a certificate of appropriateness for this application, staff is suggesting that the following conditions be applied. Number one, the existing open building permit shall be amended to reflect the work approved in this request. Number two, any additional projects requiring a building permit shall require review and approval by the ARB unless a certificate of no exterior effect is issued. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have questions for staff? I have a couple, please.
Sure.
So you mentioned in the staff report that there's wider siding in neighboring properties. How wide? How wide is that? Is it between the 4 and 6, or is it wider than 6?
I didn't measure it. I think it's probably closer to 6 or 7 on those 2 adjacent. Matt may have 8 inch. Okay.
Did you, and this might be a question for both you and the applicant when the time comes, but you mentioned that the preferred supplier had only this available. Is this the only supplier that has been checked with, or could they get the
I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I do know that I did a cursory search that indicated vinyl siding was available, but then I learned that sometimes that's not accurate, and what is being shown on some of the builders' websites and supply centers doesn't really reflect the current inventory. So that's all I know about that.
Thank you. Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to come to the microphone?
Evening.
Would you please state your name and address for the record?
John Snyder, 515 Logan Street.
Have you read the staff report, and are you in agreement with suggestions as staff presented?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else you would like us to know about this proposal?
The 7-inch siding coming out of the box was a big surprise to us, as it could have been anybody else. We really tried to work. We picked that specifically because we knew we could get administrative approval. Our installer is, beside himself. They're ready to start work whenever and get it done. We just want this to be over with. You ask about other siding. This is a high-end deal, and we looked at some other high-end stuff, but it had some stuff about we didn't have anybody around here who could install it. And then a lot of the stuff you can find off the shelf either is not going to be the right color or the grade is not one we'd want to put on the house. So we've got this here, we're ready to go with it. We really would like to be able to use it.
I'm sorry the size mix-up happened.
Ah,
That's,
well, it's not your fault.
yes, yeah, that's not pleasant.
Yeah.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Were there any citizen comments pertaining to this application? Okay. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to comment on this application? Are there any discussion points the board would like to raise before voting?
I will say, with experience in dealing with material shortages right now, it's, a lot of it is catch what you can, and it's unfortunate that the end consumer had to suffer on that, but it is the way of the world right now.
And just to clarify, the existing siding on the neighboring properties is 8 inches. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for the property located at 515 Logan Street in order for them to replace the existing 4.5-inch vinyl siding with 7-inch vinyl siding. And the staff evaluation and suggestions, I think there are 2 of them.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Ms. McDonald, will you call the roll, please?
Was that Ms. Cross that seconded?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And that was at 515 Logan.
515 Logan.
Mr. Midkiff,
Yes.
Ms. Cross,
Yes.
Mr. Breek,
Yes.
Ms. Conkle,
Yes.
Ms. Sams,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Snyder, well, thank you again for your investment in Frankfort.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it. Thank you all.
We're ready for the second item.
In accordance with Articles 4 and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, Jackson M. Bray, Jr. of Bray Properties of Kentucky LLC is requesting a certificate of appropriateness to partially demolish an existing addition and rebuild with the same plan, design, and similar materials at the property located at 209 East Todd Street. The property is more particularly identified as PVA map number 062-32-06-00400.
Okay, so as mentioned, this property is on Todd Street, 209 East Todd. It is contributing to the South Frankfort National Register District. It is a T-plan home. It's fairly old. Had a volunteer help to do some deed research, and indications are it was probably built in the 1870s. It's a very kind of simple gable and wing house. It has just a few classical flourishes on it. It used to have a Victorian front porch at one point, but the porch posts have been replaced. But other than that, it has quite a bit of integrity for its age. The applicant is proposing to rebuild the historic addition on the back, which does not have integrity. It is very structurally compromised at the moment. And he plans to rebuild it as close as he can using similar materials and hoping to salvage some of what exists. Here's a PVA map that shows the location of the property on the lot right there at Todd and Stanley Street, which is the alley right next to it. And here's a rendering of the roof plan for the house. You can see that the portion here is the gabled portion, and there is a shed roof on the front porch. And then this rear historic addition back here is the flat portion. And this is the part where the application pertains to. I found it on the 1912 Sanborn fire insurance map, and the floor plan of the house really has not changed very much at all. This is the section we're talking about, this back half here, and then this section which used to be a porch. Looks like it was later enclosed. So here are some photos of what we're dealing with here. This is looking from Stanley Street, and you can see these walls right here. You can see some daylight here in the eaves, which we know you should not be able to see. The roof actually has collapsed at this portion. Here's a straight-on view of the historic window in the back. And this is looking directly at that porch that was enclosed. This section right here, from the Sanborn map, it looks like this was open at one point, covered by the roof, but probably a recessed entry. This photo was supplied by the applicant of the interior of the worst of it, that room that's right adjacent to Stanley Street. You can see the water has infiltrated through the rubber membrane roof, which was not maintained, and the water came into the room, which was completely full of debris, and then it slowly rotted out the floor, and then the floor joists collapsed. So he is proposing to take down these two walls right here and salvage what he can, hopefully the window, rebuild them in kind, and then re-roof with a flat roof. And it could be rubber, but he would also like approval to do a metal roof if he chooses to go that route. He is in consultation with the Heritage Council about using a tax credit. If you go back to the Sanborn map, you can see this little circle here in the corner of each of the porches, which indicates that there was a tin roof on these sections of the house originally. So going back to a metal roof would be just restoring a historic condition. So, staff has put together these suggested facts for your consideration. Number one, the historic addition is already partially demolished from neglect by the previous property owner. Number two, the 1912 Sanborn map shows the property with a combination shingle and metal roof. Number three, the applicant is proposing to rebuild with materials as previously existed historically or that currently meet the design guidelines. So we find this application to be compatible with the existing design guidelines. And if the board elects to issue a certificate of appropriateness, we suggest the following conditions be applied. Number one, if a metal roof is used, it shall be flat paneled, not ribbed or corrugated, standing seam metal, and the panels shall be a minimum of 15 inches wide. Number two, if the window is not salvageable, the applicant will work with staff to find a replacement that meets the special capital design guidelines. Number three, the applicant will replace the rear door with a wood door having the same design and dimension, or with another door that meets staff approval. Now, the applicant did indicate to me that he's hoping to salvage some of that siding. If he's not able to, he will probably be using hardy board, cement board siding, which is approvable in the special capital district. Oops, we've got a few more conditions. Sorry about that. So in addition to the first three, number four, any foundation repairs that may be needed that are visible on the exterior will be reviewed and approved by staff for visual compatibility before work begins. Number Number 5, the existing open building permit shall be amended to reflect the work approved in this request. And number 6, any additional project requiring a building permit shall require review and approval by the ARB unless a certificate of no exterior effect is issued. Any questions for staff?
Yes. Where does the 15-inch on the metal panels come from?
You know, I pulled that from the design guidelines that are for the Special Historic District. And also just kind of a visual observation of the other historic roofing materials that I see in the neighborhood. But if you have a better suggestion for that condition,
Well, I have another question. Is the roof pitched at all, or will it be pitched at all?
my understanding is that, I'm not sure that it is pitched currently with the rubber membrane on it, but we don't know if it was pitched originally,
Right.
and that it may need a slight pitch.
Just from the construction aspect, for a metal roof, even if it's standing seam, it can't be flat.
It can't be flat, it needs to have a little bit.
It
So
needs to
so
have
we
a
would know
slope.
that the historic condition would have had a bit of slope to it.
There is another way to do a metal roof, but it's a different type of style. And that would be soldered flat panels,
Okay,
if it's totally flat.
okay,
So if it has a pitch, you're probably okay there. And it also depends on whether it's a manufactured product or if it's made by somebody on site. That 15-inch may be tricky. I don't know if that's a manufactured size.
okay.
So those are just two of the things that I would maybe look at amending and working with,
Absolutely.
because it may not be available.
These conditions are totally amendable, and those are very good suggestions. And I feel as though, just even from talking to him tonight, the Heritage Council is gonna be weighing in on his decision, because he is trying to go for a tax credit.
Okay. They will probably have much more information than we do.
Are there other questions for staff? I have a couple. And this is probably in the staff report, but I'm trying to remember. Is hardy board already on the structure currently? Somewhere down
I do not believe it is.
And the second one, the staff report talks about the historic addition exhibiting a fairly high degree of architectural integrity. So, for all of the proposals under this application, would any of those modifications diminish the degree of integrity?
Not in my professional opinion.
Thank you.
It is on the exterior, or the rear elevation like that.
Alright. Thank you. Would the applicant like to come to the microphone?
Hello.
Would you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Jackson M. Bray Jr. We're working on the house at 209 East Todd Street.
Have you had a chance to read the staff report, and are you in agreement with the statements?
Yes, and thank the planning board very much for their help in putting things together for us. It's been very helpful.
Is there anything else you want us to know about your application that we didn't cover earlier?
No, I think they've covered most of it. There's going to be some issues with salvage inside, badly neglected. We're going to salvage what we can. I may have a lead to buy some more siding similar to that. Don't know yet. And then the pitch, the metal roof will have to have some kind of a slight pitch on it. To, you know, you can't put a flat roof up there. That's what happened, and it rotted through, and it almost destroyed the whole end of the house back there. But we're just trying to get an application or approval for starting that work. We need to get that down and roof back on it before winter.
Does Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Thank you,
I
sir.
guess I would have a teeny tiny question, and that is simply that if you use the other surface other than the metal roof, would it be flat, or would it also need a little elevation?
There needs to be some kind of pitch, and, you know, we've got about that much room to work with that in the existing roof, so there needs to be 3 or 4 inches in there just to get the runoff on it,
Well, because it says flat in here, I was just curious.
yeah. And I'm not sure that it's actually really flat, but it needs to have something on it to, you know, just for the sake of it. And the metal roof would be the most expensive, but probably the longest lasting issue here, so that's what we're thinking about going with.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any citizen comments on this application? Is there anyone here tonight who would like to comment on this application? Are there any discussion points for the board before we make a motion?
I have a technical question. So if we make a motion to approve, do we need to omit the conditions about the metal standing seam?
I would,
I kind of had some thoughts on that. And I
Excellent.
think since, you know, it is going with preservation, or I mean, sorry, my mind went blank, tax credits,
yes.
they would have a lot of input on their own side. What I would say about that is I would let, on our side, staff make the indecision on the way the metal roofing, because it comes down to manufacturing or whether it's made on site. The manufactured products are great, they look great, there's nothing wrong with them, and they'll hold up. Getting a traditional, somebody to make it traditionally is really gonna be a tough find. And I don't think it's gonna change anything, so I would like us to make the motion with the staff being able to work with the standing seam sloped roof. I don't know how we say
Well,
it.
But if I don't have as much familiarity with materials as you do, but there are not just 3 categories of
Right.
metal roof. It's not just ribbed or
No,
corrugated
you're
or,
right.
you know, the made on-site standing seam. You can get manufactured standing seam. Or
That's what
something
I'm
that
saying.
looks the same, right?
That's
Yeah.
exactly what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
okay.
Because yes, there's a different type of panel, which is a ribbed panel, and it's not the same as anything that we've discussed tonight.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, well then maybe, let me throw this out there for consideration. Perhaps, in addition with a more traditional motion, we might consider making special reference to, should it be necessary, approving the hardy board and approving the sloped roof, as long as the applicant works with staff to make sure that those changes fall within the guidelines.
Yeah.
We could do that portion with staff approval on those items,
Just those.
period.
Yes, right, just
Without,
hardy
you
board.
know, without a lot of extra work,
Mhm.
just
Yes.
simply say staff approval would be allowed
Great.
on the roofing and the hardy board
Perfect.
selection.
All right. Does anybody have anything to add about that? Any concerns or?
I do.
All right, we could entertain a motion on this application.
Do you want me to try?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I was gonna look back at it.
Okay, I would move that we approve, the request from Mr. Jackson Bray Jr., for a certificate of appropriateness to partially demolish an existing historic addition and rebuild with the same plan, design, and similar materials at the property located at 209 East
Todd Street. Based on the findings, the 3 findings of fact that would indicate that the request is compatible with the requirements in our zoning regs. And those are on page 3 of the report. And with the 6 suggestions, recommendations for conditions, which would be altered basically to say that the metal roof and the hardy board references would be approvable by staff. Did that cover all of that?
Nice. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Before we take a vote on this, is this agreeable with staff? All right.
Okay.
Ms. McDonald, will you call the roll?
Who did that second? Rick. Mr. McKiff?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Brink?
Yes.
Ms. Conkle?
Yes.
Ms. Sands?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Ms. McDonald, are you ready to read the next item, please?
In accordance with Articles 4, 16, and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, Ashlyn Ackerman of Wayland Ventures, the Broadway Building LLC, is requesting a certificate of appropriateness to restore the exterior masonry, install new openings and secondary elevation, install an exterior egress stair with railings, construct a concrete patio with pergola, install signage, construct a dumpster enclosure, and complete other miscellaneous site work at the property located at 106 East Broadway. The property is more particularly identified as PVA map number 061 42 11 023 00.
Okay, so you're probably familiar with this very large building in our commercial historic district at 106 East Broadway. It is a contributing resource to 2 National Register historic districts, the Central Frankfort Historic District, which was listed in 2009, and then the Frankfort Commercial Historic District, which I believe was originally listed around 1979. Interestingly, although it is in the historic commercial district, this really isn't a historic commercial storefront type building, right? It's much more of an industrial warehouse type building. So the character is a little bit different than the rest of the district. The proposal is to alter the exterior to accommodate the new use for the building, which is a 49-room hotel and restaurant. And staff does feel that this proposal is compatible with the Central Business Design Guidelines. Here is an image of the PVA map. Here's the building right here, and then includes this little section next door, which is currently a concrete slab. This is an image from the 1886 Sanborn fire insurance maps. This warehouse building was actually constructed in 1879 by Samuel South and his father, who I believe was Colonel J.W. South. They were both wardens at the state penitentiary, and this building apparently was constructed to assist with the transport of things that were manufactured at the penitentiary. It's got this kind of interesting shape because it's accommodating the space, and then of course it's right next to the railroad tracks to accommodate transport. And you can see right from the beginning, in 1886, there's machinery being stored in this section. It doesn't really say what's happening here. And then we've got whiskey storage over here because E.H. Taylor actually leased that portion to use as a bourbon warehouse and offices at one point. A few years later, the Capitol Printing Company moved into this section. We got printing machinery and whiskey, or bourbon. In 1907, a good portion of it's being used for chair storage. That was something that was made at the penitentiary, so maybe it was related to that. And again, the whiskey warehouse is still happening. But at this point, this little area has been added on, and this is a tin shop. I have some historic photos that I got from the Capital City Museum that show it at different points in time. This one is not dated, but I'm guessing it's early 20th century, and there was a carriage manufacturer in the building at that time. And here's a picture of the tin shop with the shed roof. And I think this picture is probably from the 70s based on the automobile in it. You can see how that evolved until it went away, and now there's just the concrete slab. So I've taken some photos here from different angles of the building. The proposal, of course, is to restore the masonry, clean and restore, repoint, according to the Secretary of Interior's standards. The existing openings on the front here are going to be restored and reused. There will be some new openings on secondary elevations. On this side, we're going to see some addition of windows to accommodate the hotel rooms. Those will be double hung windows, clad with wood, double hung, clad with aluminum. There's also going to be a little service area created back here with two openings, one being a garage door and one being a man door, to allow a means of egress, but also a way to get like garbage and things out of the building. Here's the rear of the structure as it looks now. This is the west elevation. There's a couple views. You see it's kind of its own thing standing over there. And here's some pictures taken of the existing patio conditions. So, the renderings for the hotel, again, they show these new openings happening on these secondary elevations. There's also going to be an exterior egress stair constructed on this west side of the building. You can see it a little better right here. This will allow another means of egress. The second stair like this is going on the interior. But you can see from the engineering comments that were included in the report that they are electing to do this on the exterior wall. And, you know, staff feels like, given the industrial nature that this stairway, especially since it sets back from the front facade, is not incompatible with the existing design guidelines. It will be metal. They are going to paint it to kind of minimize its visual impact. There's a close-up view. It also shows the new patio. They also plan to construct a pergola here. This will be made of wood. There will also be another door opening added at this location here for the restaurant. That's going to be a glass storefront door with side lights and a transom. Here's another view, another angle showing the stair. The concrete patio will be constructed on top of the existing pad, and the floor height will match the first floor elevation of the restaurant. Here's another view. And this view kind of shows this service area back here with the doors. There'll be a concrete walkway drive that comes up here, and they're going to construct a enclosure made of wood to hold the dumpsters in the parking area. So, again, staff feels like this proposal does meet the existing design guidelines. We have asked the applicant, however, to remove the signage portion from tonight's approval because there are just a couple details there that are not quite in line with our zoning regs, and we have not had a chance to have kind of a one-on-one consultation with the applicant, and they are expecting to come back at some point anyway to kind of tweak this probably. So we recommended just bringing the signage back when we have more of those details finalized, and they were amenable to that. So we're gonna leave the signage out tonight. And staff has put together these following suggested facts for your consideration. Number one, the applicant is seeking historic rehabilitation tax credits. And of course, in order to receive those, they must meet the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation. Those standards are a little more stringent than the ones we have in a central business zoning district. And the proposal has already been reviewed, and it has received a preliminary Part 2 approval from the National Park Service and the Kentucky Heritage Council. And if the board does elect to issue a certificate of appropriateness for this project, staff recommends the following conditions be applied. Number one, signage will not be approved at this time. We will have further consultation with staff the applicant will have further consultation with staff with regards to signage sizes and details, and we will bring that back to the ARB on a future application. Number two, a building permit shall be applied for and issued to reflect the work approved in this request. Number three, any additional projects requiring a building permit shall require review and approval by the ARB unless a certificate of no exterior effect is issued. Make sure I don't have any on a second page. Are there questions?
If nobody else has questions, I have a couple. In the staff report under request, it mentions complete other miscellaneous site work. So, was that something you covered in the presentation tonight?
Yes, that's
So-
generally the concrete walkway. There's going to be a retaining wall on one side of it, which you can't see from the front, but you'll be able to see that from the rear. That kind of partially obscures those openings for the garage door and the man door even. It's a step down to those. And then, of course, the dumpster enclosure, which they will be putting some bollards in front of to keep it from getting hit by vehicles. I think that covers that. Ashlyn's here tonight, I believe, so she'll be able to clarify.
Next question. Looking at the guidelines for this district under 2.8, the storefront and upper story windows. Could you talk to us a little bit more about why it is that staff feels that adding upper story windows would be appropriate? Because when I read that section of the guidelines, I got the impression that that's not typically something you'd want to do for that reason, and then later on in the guidelines because it's going to change the rhythm of the existing structure.
Depending on the use that is proposed for a building, sometimes you have to make changes to accommodate the use. And you try to choose an approach to those changes to minimize their impact on the historic building. This use is quite different. A hotel use is quite different from industrial warehouse storage, where in fact you want to keep light out because you are storing things that you don't want to be touched by UV rays. And you want to keep the temperature kind of consistent and that sort of thing. This is much different from that. We're going to be adding hotel rooms, you need windows in hotel rooms, you need means of egress. And in fact, tax credit projects do get approved all the time when there is a change in use, to accommodate these kinds of features being added, but in a way that minimizes their impact. And we feel like the applicant has done a good job of minimizing the impact. You all had a similar consideration come before you with the Marcus building, which is also being changed to a hotel use. So you've seen this type of thing in the past.
I have one last question. Do you know if another design was considered for the exterior stairs? I understand that there was a structural problem with putting them on the interior.
I do not know that, but I bet the applicant has some information about that.
Does anybody else have any questions? Thank you. Would the applicant like to come to the microphone? Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name's Ashlyn Ackerman. I'm here on behalf of Wayland Ventures. Our business address is 815 West Market Street, Louisville, Kentucky.
Right. Have you had a chance to read the staff report, and are you in agreement with the suggestions and conditions?
I have and I am.
Okay. Is there anything else you want us to know about your application?
Maybe I can address just a couple of the questions that you had there. So concerning the stair, that was something that we had long discussions with both the SHPO and the National Park Service about that, leading to that engineering report, really trying to think about ways to minimize that stair. One thing you can notice is the stair is turned with the short side connecting to the building. That was a recommendation of the SHPO just to help minimize its appearance from that side elevation and pull it as far back away from the street as possible. I'm sure based on the site plan you can kind of see that we have a very interesting landlocked site. We don't really have a back door to this building. It's also made some accessibility issues just based on the current slope of Broadway Street and High Street and lots of other connectivity there. So we're really trying to work with what we have, be accommodating as best we can, and still find a way to get our garbage and everything else out of the building. And then I can just maybe touch on a little bit about what we're doing here. So we're partnering with a couple of Frankfort folks who actually own the building. Again, we're Wayland Ventures out of Louisville. And this project, in addition to tax credits, has also received state of Kentucky tourism tax credits, where the tourism cabinet is really trying to incentivize more of these boutique hospitality properties to complement the Bourbon Trail and these smaller kind of cities throughout Kentucky, instead of just having everything in Louisville and Lexington. So in addition to this project, we do have one hotel being developed in Louisville, but we also have one in Bardstown and potentially some other properties here in Frankfort. So we're really excited about being able to bring these things to the state of Kentucky.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant? I have one.
Yeah.
And I actually meant to ask staff this, but I'm betting you know the answer. Do you know how long that building had sat empty before you guys?
Well, I know our company looked at it approximately 11 years ago, and it was empty. And somebody had an idea, that idea fell through. Then the group that we got linked up with to work on it, they had done some structural repairs to the building and sort of stopped without kind of knowing what their next step wanted to be. And that's when we got involved. So I think it's been at least 10 years, possibly longer than that.
Thank you. No other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Were there citizen comments for this application? Is there anyone here that would like to speak about this application? Okay. Anything the board wants to discuss? All right, we would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I would like to make a motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness in accordance with Articles 4, 13, 16, and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance to restore exterior masonry, install secondary elevations, install an exterior egress stair with railings, construct a concrete patio with pergola, install signage, construct a dumpster enclosure, and complete other miscellaneous site work at the properties located at 104 and 106 East Broadway, taking into account suggested conditions of staff.
Second.
Thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Midkiff,
Yes.
Ms. Cross,
Yes.
Mr. Bree,
Yes.
Ms. Conkle,
Yes.
Ms. Samms,
Yes.
and Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you for your investment in Frankfurt. You ready for the next item when you are?
In accordance with Articles 4 and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, John and Abby Clark are requesting a certificate of appropriateness for design plans to construct a single-family residence on the property located at 416 Capitol Avenue. The property is more particularly identified as PBA map number 062 31 06 004 00.
Okay. So now we turn to 416 Capitol Avenue, and this application this evening is just for a conceptual review of the plans that have been submitted for construction of a single-family home on the lot in this location. So we aren't addressing like the exact position on the lot tonight. We're not going to address the fencing or other historic features around the property. This is just a review of the design plans to determine whether they are appropriate to the district and to this particular lot in the district. So interestingly, this lot is considered contributing to the South Frankfort neighborhood National Register District, but only as a combined parcel with the neighbor at 418. And as I understand it, both parcels were owned by the same entity for a long period of time. And so when the National Register nomination was updated and the boundaries expanded and they reevaluated all of the properties at that time, those two properties were lumped together as one contributing property. Okay, of course, with the parcel now being separated and a new house being constructed, it will be non-contributing to the district after that point. But we're still concerned with how the design fits and how it relates to the buildings around it in the district. And our design guidelines do discuss new construction. They talk about things like rhythm, and they address size and scale, massing, and roof shape and form, the articulation on the exterior, the arrangement of openings, and the materials and textures used. And, you know, that's just to say that historic districts aren't frozen in amber. They do change. You do need infill construction at times. The Special Capital District especially is not frozen in amber, I would say, relative to many historic districts. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the design, the infill design, will relate well to what's around it, but not try to fool anybody into thinking that it's a historic building. It will be a structure of its own time. And I think that's pretty well articulated, actually, in the purpose of our zoning regulations for the Special Capital District, where it says these neighborhoods may not have the substantial architectural and historic significance of the Special Historic District, but they still have a definable characteristic, architectural period, and living environment substantially different from those existing or intended in regular zoning districts. So what we're looking for is something that fits, doesn't look like it belongs in a new subdivision, because that's not the character of South Frankfort, right? So new construction that fits. Staff actually, believes this proposal does a good job of fitting into the special capital district, and we feel it is compatible with the design guidelines. And we can talk about that in a little more detail, but first I want to show you the position of the lot in the neighborhood, and I understand you are familiar because you have had discussions about this idea in the past. Here we have the front elevation, and as the architect has submitted it, this is proposed to face 4th Street, even though the address is currently Capitol Avenue. That is a historic condition on that lot. The previous house on the lot faced 4th Street. And you can see we've got a variety of roof forms, shapes, a great deal of articulation on the exterior. There is a wraparound front porch, which is a feature that you find on many houses in South Frankfort. There is a tower, but that's actually something that you find in the neighborhood as well. So it is picking up the details of some of the surrounding properties without emulating them or copying them completely. I didn't include every single floor plan. This is the first floor plan, just to give you a general idea of the overall shape. But you did get the full set of drawings to look at, both electronically and in your packet. So hopefully you had a chance to review those in detail. The house, as it is proposed, is almost 3,000 square feet, 2,986 according to the architect. That size is very comparable to the blocks before and after and next door to this particular lot. I looked, and houses ranged on Capitol Avenue from about 1,550 to 4,200 square feet, but the majority of them fall right in this range. The materials that are proposed for the exterior of this property include asphalt shingles for the roof. The siding is a combination of hardy board, which is approvable in the special capital district, and also something called boral. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. But I did get some samples from the manufacturer, and they are there on the table in front of you tonight if you would like to inspect this siding. And also the trim. Now the smaller pieces right there, that is the composite decking material for the porches, and that is called, help me out. Oh, it's the company name. It's called, starts with an A. Armadillo. But the boral siding is actually, it's made with fly ash from coal combustion. That's one of the products in it. And it's very interesting because it has, it doesn't exactly feel like wood, but it has the characteristics of wood in terms of you being able to cut it and shape it. And I do know that it is a material that is used and approved in many historic districts around the country. I'm not aware of another example in South Frankfort that has asked to use this yet, which is why I thought you might want to see it in person. But it is a product that is being used in other historic districts. The architect is proposing a variety of windows. The majority of them are double hung windows, and the material will be wood with fiberglass cladding. Again, I'm not sure, we permit vinyl clad wood windows administratively in special capital. I'm not really sure how fiberglass compares to that. But I do think that it is more, you're more likely to see that window in historic districts than you are vinyl clad, to be honest. And they are also proposing the same material for the doors, with the exception of possibly the front door, which may be wood. Architecturally, this house has it evokes kind of that spirit of the arts and crafts movement. It has some of the same detailing that you see on arts and crafts architecture, especially with regard to things like the bracket detailing, which the architect has placed here, for example, under the porch. You see these battered sides on each side of the porch piers, and even the trim around the windows as proposed reminds me of what you see. So they have a lot of craftsman style architecture. But at the same time, you know, it has a little more vertical orientation, so it's really trying to be its own thing, which is what we want, I think. I've included some other photographs of some of the houses around the neighborhood, just so you can get an idea of the other forms and shapes nearby. This house is directly across the street on the corner of Capitol and 4th Street. It's directly north of this house. This house is diagonal it's on the other side of Capitol Avenue on 4th Street. It's 102 East 4th, I believe. And interestingly, this house used to have a tower on it. I don't know if you were aware of that, but it was removed at some point. This is the house directly adjacent to this one on the same block. It was built in 1927. Dutch colonial revival. And then at the far end of the same block, facing Campbell Street, is this house, which is a historic T-plan with some Italianate and other Victorian detailing on the exterior. This house is directly west of the lot on 4th Street, same side of the street. This house is on Campbell, next to the T-plan I showed you 2 pictures ago. But that's just to show you the variety of roof types and the different massing and scale that you find in the vicinity. Here are some more examples. Both of these are on Capitol Avenue, including this beautiful little craftsman style bungalow. And here's a 4 square that's directly across the street on 4th Street. Now, I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the significance of this property historically. Even though it is technically an empty lot, it does have a lot of history. And I did pull this 1907 Sanborn map out for you to see the last house. Apparently there were several houses on this lot, which I did not know about. This was only the last house. And it was called the Magnolias. It was constructed in the 1890s by Dr. E.E. Hume, who was a prominent physician in Frankfort. And I included some history in your staff report that I pulled from the survey form, and then I learned that that wasn't accurate. So what we do know about this previous house is that it was constructed in the 1890s. It was called the Magnolias. It was constructed by E.E. Hume, and it actually burned in 1919, not 1912, like I said previously. And there has been nothing on the lot since that time. But what you should kind of pay attention to here is that the parcel that this house stood on took up the entire lot and included that little T-plan house that faced Campbell Street on this end. And the 1920, because this is 1907, and it hasn't burned yet, the 1927 house, which is the house that a lot was linked with when it was considered contributing. That's not on this map yet, but that's right here. Here's a picture of the magnolias. It's not very clear. I got these from the Capital City Museum. You can see the stairway, which remnants of still exists today. Here's another picture from 1909. And the Capital City Museum even made this their Christmas ornament a couple years ago to commemorate the history of the house. Another thing I did not know, but I know now, is that this is a registered archaeological site with the Office of State Archaeology. And you can see just from looking at an aerial view here that we've got archaeological features. You can see the old drive and the stairs, like I said, and then of course there's foundation and much more. Now our design guidelines and Article 17 really don't have much to say about archaeological sites. Article 17 doesn't really say much outside of the design guidelines portion where it references them under site features. But even where it references them, it doesn't really have any prescriptive treatment for archaeological features. But I bring this up because in addition to these suggested facts, I'm going to get to some conditions in a minute, and I've included a condition that relates to the archaeology for your consideration. But we'll start with the suggested facts for this case, which are, number one, the square footage of the proposed house is consistent with the houses along Capitol Avenue and are directly adjacent to this project. If you're looking just at the houses right adjacent, we've got 2419 square feet to the north, 2956 to the south, and 2766 to the west. So this is very much in line with those houses. Number two, the essential form, scale, and massing is comparable to other structures in the neighborhood. And if the board chooses to issue a certificate of appropriateness for these design plans, staff suggests the following conditions apply. Number one, a site plan showing the position of the house on the lot will be reviewed and approved by staff when the applicant is ready for that. Number two, the applicants will meet with staff and a professional archaeologist before work commences to discuss the historic archaeological features on the site. This is mostly just education and having a full understanding of what's on their property before they do take those construction steps, because once they do that, it'll be gone. So if they choose to do anything further with the archaeology, at least they'll know what they're dealing with. Number three, you'll probably notice that boral siding has two sides to it. One of them has a wood grain on it. We recommend that the siding be smooth, turned to the smooth portion and not the wood grain portion, which is not so compatible with the other structures in the district. Number four, a building permit will be applied for and issued for the work approved in this request. Number five, any deviation from what is approved will be reviewed and approved by staff. Number six, any additional projects requiring a building permit shall require review and approval by the Architectural Review Board unless a certificate of no exterior effect is issued. That's, be happy to answer questions.
Does anyone have any questions for staff?
I have one question. Is there a driveway that's gonna go around the side, or is it coming in the back, or will there not be a driveway? And
I don't think those parts of the design are fleshed out yet.
Okay.
I think that will be part of
I
when
was
they,
just curious.
yeah.
As I was looking at the pictures.
There's the historic drive, but I
Right.
don't know if they'll choose to put a new drive in that location or if it would be in a different location. That's not part of this
Right.
application.
Ms. Science?
I think you mentioned, there was arts and crafts detailing on the home. Battered columns were mentioned. What are the other details?
I'm sorry.
What are the other details?
In addition to the brackets, you know, those types of decorative brackets you typically see under the eaves of craftsman-style houses. And then there's the battered sides on the window trim, and the, you know, craftsman-style houses often have a mixed use of materials on the exterior. So the fact that they're using two types of siding kind of reflects that. The architect actually mentioned that, you know, arts and crafts is kind of what he was thinking of as he was designing it. So
Okay.
I'm sure he'll have more to say about that when he comes up here.
Any other questions for staff? I have one, as always. Under the staff suggestions, line item number 4 says any deviation from what is approved in this application will be reviewed and approved by staff. But line item 5 says any additional projects requiring a building permit shall require review by the ARB. What's the fine line difference
Well,
here?
the fine line difference is if it's approvable by staff, it will be approved.
so it is.
But if it can't be approved by staff, then of course we would bring it back to you.
Okay. Thank you. Would the applicant like to come to the microphone? Hi.
Hi,
Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
my name's David Whitmer. Our business is Prajna Design and Construction. We're out of Lexington. Our mailing address, most of the guys live in Lexington. Our shop is in an old grist mill in Troy, Woodford County, southern Woodford, near Nonsuch. I live near Nonsuch in a farm as well, so that's our kind of working address. But we've been, we've had our design, construction, general contracting business since '85. And fresh out of architecture school, we started our own design build. So we basically design what we build and build what we design. We try to incorporate both processes together to work with the clients to kind of streamline designs, but also be able to make adjustments along the way, you know, to make better product. And architecture is the main thing, you know, for us. And we do try to be creative and a little different so things stand out a little bit and it makes it interesting for people to live there, for, you know, for, and make the house or the project be special for years, interesting. We use a lot of recycled materials. We're very environmentally green conscious, which is why the new building products are okay with us. You know, I believe in traditional. We've done a lot of restoration. I'm working on a log smokehouse restoration right now in Troy, and so I believe in respecting the site, the material, the construction. This site, as you know, is very important. It's very, everybody, you know, it's a very challenging site. And, so I try to do stuff that's like I say, that we can build. A lot of the details don't come out until the project starts going along necessarily. But the idea, some of the drawings I had of the details for the windows, obviously, a lot of windows are different sizes, so the proportions of the windows will probably adjust to the proportions of, the trim. So, but the style will be the same. The awning windows or the smaller windows up in the attic space and in the bathrooms is basically because the windows are smaller, and there are awnings and casements in the old arts and crafts and that time period in the teens, 20s, 30s, last century. And so, I try to get that spirit with this. It is different. I hope it's a little different. Some of the bracket detailing it's going to have that. It's obviously it doesn't look like, a lot of that kind of style. But that I don't think it needs to copy any of that style. I think it's, again, if we can somehow interpret the spirit of it. I think, they also had, beadboard for either the ceilings and the porch ceilings, that kind of thing, or in a lot of places, those when they had back screen porches and they would enclose them and make them interior spaces, you would see that vertical beadboard that they would apply on the outsides or the insides, outsides. So I think that vertical siding was to try to play, pick up a little bit of that, without copying, that detail, that material, image. The decking on the front porch, the composite decking is again, it's a product out there now that, it has a good, I don't know what you use now for side or decking that, that will last, that, originally it would have been heart pine, or it would have been cypress, or, and you just can't find that quality of any of those materials now. So, I'm not, the composite it has its image, but I think the detailing, the way we do it, again, we're very respectful of the trim and the details that go with that, material. Getting back to the wood, the wood bees are out there now, right? And any piece of wood you put outside is like to get attacked. And that's another reason I've kind of gotten towards, I'm okay with hardy board, fiber cement board, because they don't make poplar siding anymore that's worth anything. And there is a maintenance issue. The hardy boards and the boral, or boral, it's boral, I think, but it takes paint great, it lasts a long time. We've done the hardy now for 15 years or so when we shifted over and said, okay, we're going to accept it. And the paint jobs have lasted 15 years at least on this, if you do it good. So the product, the boral also is ground contact. It obviously won't rust. You don't have, it won't rot. You don't have insect issues with it. And it works just like wood. You mill it and make it look like wood. Yeah, I don't like fake wood grain. We don't do that. I don't like that fake concept of anything. The little awning windows as well, they're little awning shades like over the kitchen windows, and then over the master bedroom on the first floor, and then over the bedroom on the second floor, over the double windows. There's also a little reminiscent of like an arts and craft doing little wood structures, little wooden awnings to protect those windows, give them a little shade and whatnot. But as you know, the site goes like this. So, there's this presence to it that. So I think the first idea we had was a 2-story plus the cupola kind of thing, pushed out to the front like the house was across the street. And it just was too impressive there. The house across the street is on the ground level, so it doesn't have that kind of, feel to it. So the second round we did this, we scaled it down to like a story and a half and popped those little gable dormers kind of things off the front, and then pushed that kind of tower, that attic little circulation or little attic space up, back towards the center of the house. So it kind of reduced the scale a little bit and made it a little more proportionally, I think, with the site, nowadays. It's a very challenging site. The shape of it's challenging. The archaeology end of it, I think, the stone foundation is what's there. And I don't know what might have been there before the house was there, whether you're going to find something really historic if you try to dig there. But all I can see, it's overgrown terribly right now. So until you start clearing out, I don't know what you're going to find other than stones, for the foundation. I don't know there'd be anything else in there. But, so I don't know when you get the archaeology in their report, I don't know what that is, how that's going to impact what we do there. I don't know what kind of standard or what kind of report they would do to inform whether or not this house can be built or not. But I think that's all I was going to say.
All right, Mr. Clark, did you want to speak?
I just want to build this house.
Okay. Well, welcome back. It's good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Really glad you're back. I would throw out there, as Ms. Bierenberg already stated, as far as archaeology goes, that while archaeological features are mentioned in the guidelines, there's no treatment. So it is a matter of being a good steward of the resource more than anything else. And so I love that condition, but
I have tried to get him to let me start digging in there already, to just, because I'm very much.
A lot of work.
My stepson's a licensed archaeologist too, so so I have that in me, that desire, and plus I love looking at I love looking in old buildings. My two favorite places are the basement and the attic, so I love learning from old structures, and so I respect the site, and so I don't know what to say.
have you read the staff report? Are you in agreement with the suggestions and conditions that were listed?
We've spoken with and I'm trying to remember which Archaeological Society here in Frankfort. They didn't want anything to do with it. They said that place had been looted and whatever so many times that they weren't concerned with doing anything there, but we can seek other sources for that, so.
Is there anything else you want us to know about the property at this time? I realize this is conceptual, but
Yeah, no, it's actually gonna almost follow the same footprint and sit in the same orientation, and the driveway will still remain as it is, and pretty much just gonna be built back, not that big stone monolith that was there, but it'll be fairly identical to what was there in spirit.
are there any questions for the applicant from the board? Thank you. Were there any citizen comments on this application? Is anybody here to speak on this application tonight? Any discussion? All right, we would entertain a motion.
I'll give it a shot. Okay. In accordance with Articles 4 and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, I would move that we approve the request by John and Abby Clark for a certificate of appropriateness for design plans to construct a single-family residence on the property located at 416 Capitol Avenue. Oops. And, based on, the,
Findings of fact.
hmm?
Findings of fact.
Yes, based on the findings of facts presented by staff that show the compatibility, with the requirements of the zoning regs, and with the conditions suggested by staff with the addition of a sixth, condition that the siding shall be smooth, not wood grained. That was not in the actual staff report, but it was.
That was not on the staff report, but it was in the presentation.
So adding that one to the ones in the staff report.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
We call the roll?
Mr. Midkiff,
Yes.
Ms. Cross,
Yes.
Mr. Bree,
Yes.
Ms. Conkle,
Yes.
Ms. Samms,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you guys for your investment and your tenacity. We need to take a 5-minute break, if that's okay.
Sorry, Brian.
Maybe not 5 minutes.
Not 5 minutes, not
I'm
5
sorry,
minutes.
not 5 minutes, just a couple minutes. I'm sorry.
Which end is that?
But we'll get started back with the design review. Would you read the next item, please?
In accordance with Articles
already?
4, 17, 12, and 19 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, Brian Hicks, on behalf of Kentucky Justice Association, is requesting a conditional use permit to operate a professional office at the property located at 736 Shelby Street. The property is more particularly identified as PBA map number 062-1407-01500.
Okay, so we are at our final application. This is at 736 Shelby Street, and this is for a conditional use permit. You can see that the building is actually a house, a residential structure. That's what it was designed for, but the applicant would like to use it for professional office use, and that does require a conditional use permit in the special capital zone. This house is contributing to the National Register Historic District in South Frankfort. It is a T-plan house, probably built I think that 1870s probably got stuck on my slide from the previous one. This one is probably close to that though. I would say maybe 1880s. It's brick in the front. It has some additions on the back. But the application is compatible with the zoning regulations, so staff is supportive of this application. This is a PBA map, and it is inaccurate. will tell you that. We had a little concern because there was an open space requirement for this use in this zone. So we actually went to the deed room and pulled the deed, and this boundary is inaccurate, and it goes actually 115 feet back, so it's closer to this area here. Interestingly, historically, this is the 1955 Sanborn map, and it's a little fuzzy, I apologize, it's a picture I took with my phone. But you can see the lot right here. And in 1955, these parcels were all still together on one lot. So here's just some photos of the different sides of the structure. There's an addition on the back and a screen-in porch. The house has about 1,700 square feet, not including the porches. This is the backyard. Here's kind of a shot of the neighborhood looking to the northeast. There is an asphalt drive that's part of the property on the north side. Here's a view of Shelby looking to the southeast. And then, of course, directly across the street is the Capitol complex. So staff has put together these following suggested facts for this application. Number one, the proposed use complies with the purpose and intent of the Special Capital District. Number two, the proposed use is consistent with the goals and policies of the South Frankfort District as identified and described in the Franklin County Comprehensive Plan. Number three, the building in which the use is proposed contains 1,701 square feet, not including the porches. Number four, the open space and parking requirements are met between the driveway and also the adjacent parking on Lafayette, adjacent to the lot. It meets the requirements. So if the board elects to issue a conditional use permit, staff suggests that the following conditions be applied. Number one, a building permit shall be obtained for the change of use. Number two, any additional project requiring a building permit shall require review and approval by the Architectural Review Board unless a certificate of no exterior effect is issued. Number three, the conditional use permit is only at 736 Shelby Street. Number four, any signs for the office that conform to the standards contained in Article 4 and 13 of the Frankfort zoning ordinance may be approved administratively. Number five, this conditional use, whose land use is codified as professional office, is only applicable to this permit issued to this property owner and is not transferable. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Mr. Hicks, would you come to the microphone?
Good evening, I'm Brian Hicks, McNamara and Jones. We represent the applicant, Kentucky Justice Association, who is the association and lobby group for trial attorneys, basically. Previously headquartered in Louisville, they want to establish, after the times we've had in the last year and a half, 2 years with COVID, they've determined they don't need as much space, so they've decided to relocate here in Franklin County and contacted me back about a month ago to find them a piece of property. We called Donald Perry, and an hour later we were under contract. So they now are here before you to seek the conditional use permit for professional office to operate their office out of there. Basically going to be 2 employees most of the time, in and out, and then during the session, 4 to 5. And then we'll be back before you next month for some other requests.
Okay. Have you and the applicant read the staff report? Are you in agreement with the facts and conditions?
We have and we are.
Okay. Is there anything else you want us to know?
Just here to answer your questions.
Do we have any questions? Were there any citizen comments? All right. Any discussion points? All right, we'd entertain a motion.
All right. I'd like to make a motion in accordance with Articles 4, 12, 17, 18, and 19 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance. I would like to motion that the applicants get Brian Hicks, on behalf of the Kentucky Justice Association, get a conditional use permit to operate a professional office at the property located at 736 Shelby Street, and with the conditions of the staff suggestions.
Second.
Will you call the roll, please, Ms. McDonald?
Mr. Midkiff,
Yes.
Ms. Cross,
Yes.
Mr. Brink,
Yes.
Ms. Conkle,
Yes.
Ms. Sands,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson. Motion carries.
Thank you, thank the applicant for us for their investment. Is there anything else from the board tonight? Well, real quickly, since this came up with the complications of the motions, if Ms. Cross and Ms. Sands, if you were interested in drafting a template for our temporary use, would you be interested in drafting a template for our use? Would you think that was a good idea?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Ms. Cross?
Oh, it's Cross.
Well, now, if Mr. Mitchell would like
I'll help you.
All right, Mr. Midkiff and Ms. Cross, that would be great, thank you.
All right. I'll scribble some stuff and send it to you.
That'll work.
and you can-
If there's nothing else, we could have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm betting no opposed, so you guys have a good night.